Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Martial Universe Season 6 based on novel. So let's start. Everything in front of Lin Dong's eyes swiftly became dark the instant he entered the large bronze door. All of his senses even appeared to have been sealed within his body. His original powerful mental energy that lingered around his body was also directly and forcefully suppressed back into his body. This sudden sealing caused Lin Dong to be slightly shocked. However, he did not overly panic. After musing for a moment, he finally began to gradually relax. Not long after Lin Dong's body relaxed, the darkness suddenly disappeared. Rays of light once again broke through the darkness and shone onto Lin Dong. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes. He adapted to this kind of light for a moment before slowly widening his eyes. An incomparably large door was imprinted into his eyes. Lin Dong was as small as an ant when standing in front of this gigantic door. He raised his head and observed it. The kind of pressurizing feeling from the door was so vast and mighty that it caused his heart to tremble violently. The enormous door was pale green in color. However, it was not shut at this moment. Instead, it was in a kind of open state. Lin Dong's gaze looked behind the large door. Everything was hazy, and he was unable to clearly see anything. The extreme atypical and mysterious state caused him to become exceptionally careful. His heart also slowly sunk. This place, is this the site of the four great mysterious sects' inheritance? Lin Dong muttered to himself. The shock in his heart finally calmed gradually, as he looked at the large open door. Buzz 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 buzz. A green glow suddenly gathered on that enormous door while Lin Dong was muttering to himself. There seemed to be an ancient character vaguely floating on it. It carried the heaviness of a tale that possessed the charm to capture one's heart. For great mysterious sect, Green Dragon Hall. Lin Dong stared at those ancient characters and softly spoke. Green Dragon Hall. Is this one of the four great mysterious sects? The green glowing ancient characters once again appeared on the enormous door while Lin Dong was musing. The green dragon test is extremely dangerous. Most would die attempting it. Think twice before entering. Think twice before entering. The two think twice before entering were highlighted with a bloody light, giving it a fierce and brutal appearance. Anyone who saw these words would be somewhat gripped with fear. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air. There's still a test here. Lin Dong looked at these ancient characters and began to frown slightly. He did not expect that he was actually unable to successfully obtain the inheritance even after experiencing a fight and entering the bronze door. Instead, he had to pass through this so-called green dragon test. Lin Dong looked around this mysterious place. It seemed that there was only one path in front of him. At this point, he could not even retreat. He involuntarily felt a little helpless. The person who designed this place was truly quite peculiar. On one hand, he told others to think twice before entering, on the other hand, he had sealed off one's retreat path. Clearly, the only path that one could take was to enter this enormous door and experience that so-called green dragon test. What was there to be careful and think twice about? Lin Dong quietly cursed the designer of this space in his heart. After which, he lifted his foot and walked towards the large open door. He had arrived here after much difficulty. Forget about a mere test. Even if he had to experience great danger, he would still make an attempt without resigning to the situation. This was because he clearly understood that he must rely on these ancient inheritance in order to stand out in this ancient battlefield that was filled with geniuses. A person's hard work was indeed extremely important. However, these ancient inheritance could allow one's hard work to be rewarded by 10 times, or even a couple of dozen times. Moreover, Lin Dong did not have the additional time to search for another treasure and obtain the inheritance within it. Hence, he could only continue this path at this moment. Green Dragon Test. I want to experience just how dangerous you are. Lin Dong's expression changed slightly as he stood in front of the large door. Finally, he gritted his teeth and ceased hesitating. With a step forward, he entered through the door. The expected darkness did not appear after Lin Dong stepped across the door. His gaze merely became dazed with lightning-like speed. Next, he sensed that the surrounding place had suddenly changed. Bang! A bang suddenly resounded in Lin Dong's ears as a thunderbolt rushed past. The silver light shone onto Lin Dong's body. Those usually calm eyes were currently gradually being occupied by traces of shock. A seemingly endless silver-colored sea was being reflected from Lin Dong's eyes. The top of this sea was dark clouds that stretched to the horizon. The dark clouds was of an unknown thickness, with lightning flowing within it. Numerous gigantic thunderbolts whizzed down like furious dragons brandishing their claws. Finally, they mercilessly smashed onto the silver-colored sea below. Bang! Large waves began to surge over the sea after it was being struck by the thunderbolt. However, Lin Dong was able to see a flickering lightning amidst the waves. The sea water was actually being completely filled by electricity. Hiss! Even with Lin Dong's calmness, he still involuntarily inhaled a breath of cold air upon seeing this scene. He suddenly looked around him and discovered that he was already within this sea. There was only a 10 feet large rock under his feet. Numerous lightning of various liquids spread apart, striking onto the rock. The liquid shot out and landed onto Lin Dong's legs. Immediately, a piercing pain sensation was transmitted from it. The electric liquid was actually real. That piercing pain caused Lin Dong's body to suddenly tremble. His eyes involuntarily shrunk. Originally, he had thought that this might be an illusion. However, that kind of pain caused him to understand that this unbelievable sea of lightning in front of him was actually real. The current him was deep within this electric sea. Lin Dong felt his head immediately turned numb when he thought of this. Only at this moment did he understood how terrifying this green dragon test was. This might not be some blade mountain or sea of fire, but it was a sea of lightning that was even more terrifying than a sea of fire. It is actually possible to do something like this. Looks like the strength of the person who created this test is quite terrifying. Little Martin finally came out from Lin Dong's body at this moment. It looked at the sea of lightning that spread to the horizon. A surprise involuntarily flashed across his eyes when he did so. Could it be that this test intends for me to pass through this sea of lightning? Lin Dong raised his head. Enormous thunderbolt descended from the thick dark clouds like a storm. Looking from afar, it appeared just like a lightning curtain, and was incomparably spectacular. The might of the heavens was just like a prison. Lin Dong sensed a wild and violent energy from those thunderbolts. Even if it was him, it was likely that he would not be able to endure if he was repeatedly struck by this kind of thunderbolt. It should be intended for you to charge through these things. You can only pray in the face of these things. Little Martin spread its claws and innocently said. Lin Dong rolled his eyes when he heard Little Martin's useless advice. However, he immediately let out a deep breath. His eyes stared at the sea of lightning and hesitated for a moment. The pride in his heart suddenly rose. I want to experience just how difficult it is to pass through this sea of lightning. After laughing out loud, Lin Dong pressed his toes onto the rock and his body rushed forward. Kai! However, a force that could not be resisted suddenly surged out from all directions the moment Lin Dong charged out from the area around the rock. It directly pressed his body down and caused him to fall into the sea of lightning. Hiss hiss. Lin Dong's feet landed onto the sea of lightning, but did not sink into it. However, the electric liquid came swarming over. Immediately, an intense pain surged out from his feet. This kind of feeling was as though he had stepped into a pot of boiling oil. The intense pain from under his feet also caused Lin Dong to swiftly recover. He hurriedly maneuvered his yuan power. A gold glow surged from under his skin. Within the blink of an eye, his entire body was covered by the golden glow. Clearly, he had activated the Nirvana golden body. Creak creak. With the activation of the Nirvana golden body, the intense pain had quickly weakened significantly. However, Lin Dong was still able to sense threads of wild and violent energy surging into his body from his feet. Even his veins became a little swollen wherever the energy passed, appearing as though it had been electrocuted. Zap! The hair on Lin Dong's head directly became vertical at this moment. He appeared just like a hedgehog, and was extremely comical. His mouth widened and a thread of black smoke was emitted from it. Damn it! Lin Dong's expression was a little black. He gritted his teeth and cursed. After the experiment from earlier, he discovered that it was actually impossible to fly over this sea of lightning. In other words, he could only transverse this endless sea of lightning by walking. The wild and violent energy within the sea of lightning continued to invade into Lin Dong's body. Only by continuously activating the Nirvana golden body did he manage to barely resist it. However, activating the Nirvana golden body required the support of a large amount of yuan power. The exhaustion of activating this Nirvana golden body, as though one was consuming a meal, was something that even Lin Dong had difficulty enduring. I have even walked across the darkness world of the devouring ancestral symbol. I don't believe that I am unable to cross your sea of lightning. Lin Dong parted his mouth. A stubbornness had been stirred in him by this sea of lightning. Immediately, a thought passed through his mind. Wisps of golden light surged out from under his skin. After which, they agglomerated under his feet. Golden light dissipated from it and blocked the pouncing electric liquid. Cluck! Lin Dong transformed his feet into a pair of golden feet. After which, he clenched his teeth, raised his foot and walked forward. Sizzle sizzle. Lin Dong's foot landed on the sea of lightning. Even with the protection of the Nirvana golden body, he still felt as if he was walking on countless steel needles. Cold sweat had already seeped out of Lin Dong's forehead, after only talking a couple of steps. The intense pain spread upwards from his feet. However, the stubbornness in Lin Dong's eyes became increasingly dense. His descending footsteps also became increasingly firmer. Amidst the lighting curtain that filled the sky, a figure gradually walked into the distance under the protection of the faint golden glow. Above the electric sea, a glaring lightning accompanied by an angry dragon roar like thunder, streaked across the horizon and bombarded brutally onto the electric sea, creating sky-high tidal waves instantly. The tidal waves that were formed by the electric liquid clashed against a flimsy figure, who was engulfed by a golden light on the surface of the sea. Bang! Deep and low clashing sounds were given off, while that figure was being knocked back by a few meters. As the violent electric liquid dripped down from his body and interweaved with the golden glow, popping sounds sounded off repeatedly. This figure walking amid the electric sea was naturally Lin Dong, who was trying to crash his way through the green dragon test. At this moment, his body was slightly crooked after he was hit by the electric liquid-formed tidal wave. His facial expression was somewhat distorted and he appeared to be in pain. These electric liquids contained a rather violent energy. Under such energy, even with the protection of the Nirvana golden body, the intense pain that was caused by that kind of corrosion could not be avoided. That feeling was as if steel rods were being thrusted into one's body and pierced through one's bones and heart. Phew! Lin Dong's mouth quickly gasped for 2 mouthfuls of breath, before his tightly clenched fists loosened up slowly. Then, he straightened his body, which was previously made crooked from the collision against the tidal wave. After walking for nearly half a day, he had encountered such situation countless times. The pain caused by the electric liquids was rather torturing. If not for the nirvana golden body, he would be corroded by the electric liquids, until even his bones did not remain. However, even though it was painful, Lin Dong discovered some loopholes while he was being struck continuously by the intense pain. It seemed that every time the level of pain reached its climax, the violent energy would release a form of weird energy. This energy was extremely weak. Every time it appeared, it would dissipate into Lin Dong's body. If it was not for his sharp perception for mental energy, he would not have noticed it. This weird energy that seeped out from the electric liquids did not boost Lin Dong's yuan power. However, he could feel that he was unknowingly strengthened by that strange energy. After he was being strengthened, it seemed that he gained a bit more resistance towards the corrosiveness of the electric liquids. Even though the pain remained excruciating, it was clearly better than the beginning. Should it continue to strengthen, perhaps Lin Dong would be able to disregard the raging electric sea one day. Yet, in order to reach that stage, one may not realize the intensity of pain he has to endure. If one's mind is not resilient, or if he is pretty much a weakling, even if one realizes this situation, one may not be able to survive. Considering this and its speed, to achieve the stage of disregard to the lighting, Lin Dong wiped off the streak of electric liquid on his head, looked up at the silvery electric sea that still no end before he frowned slightly. Based on his conjecture, at this rate, it would take at least half a year's time. And obviously, Lin Dong cannot afford the time. Within half a year, the 100 Empire War will begin. Before that begins, he must pass through the Green Dragon trial and gain the Green Dragon Hall's inheritance here. It is not impossible to raise the speed. While Lin Dong was agonizing over this, the voice of little Martin rang inside him. Do you have a solution? Lin Dong was a little startled and asked little Martin instead. These electric liquids indeed contain a kind of strengthening energy. It will only be released at the climax of your pain. However, the energy released automatically is only 1/10 of the total amount of energy that the electric liquids really contained. As long as you can keep the remaining 90% of the energy, the speed of your body strengthening will naturally be increased, little Martin explained nonchalantly. Then, what is next? Lin Dong plainly asked. Upon hearing what was being said, Lin Dong did not lose control in ecstasy. Instead, his eyelids were drooping. He knew that there was no free lunch in this world. There's nothing much. It's just that the pain that you have to endure will be 10 times stronger than before, little Martin smirked. 10 times. The corners of Lin Dong's eyes twitched. Even though he had made the mental preparations, his body still could not help but tremble. That kind of pain was not something that an ordinary human could endure. It's indeed something unbearable. However, this is the only way to increase the speed of strengthening your body. Of course, it still depends on you whether or not you can do it, little Martin replied. What choice do I have? Lin Dong seemed somewhat helpless. Then, he straightened his body and gazed into the distance and said, It's up to you to harvest the remaining energy. As for enduring the pain, leave it to me. Let's start. Lin Dong clenched his fists, and his eyes became focused abruptly. Then, without any hesitation, he took a step forward. TCH. As Lin Dong started to walk again, the lightning from the electric sea immediately extended towards him and transmitted from his feet into his body. At once, the intense pain came surging through his body again. I will start now. You will have to endure the pain by yourself. If you can't handle the pain, tell me. As the violent energy gushed into Lin Dong's body once again, little Martin's voice slightly gravened. After it finished its sentence, Lin Dong could feel the sharp pain in his body intensified almost in an instant. The step that Lin Dong just took on the electric sea stopped, and his body unexpectedly trembled repeatedly. Cold sweat continuously trickled down from his forehead, and finally followed the sides of his face and dropped off. Unexpectedly, that kind of sharp pain could be so brutal. The facial features of Lin Dong were severely distorted and his mouth was gasping for huge mouthfuls of breath. After a long time of being in such state, the washed-out Lin Dong could finally feel the intense pain gradually fading. Gulp. As the intense pain faded, Lin Dong's long-awaited weird energy finally arrived like the spring rain that immersed him. The weird energy extended through his limbs and into his bones. At that moment, Lin Dong's muscles, nerves and cells, which were being numbed by the intense pain, started to show signs of heating up. The energy that he had expended due to the intense pain previously was restoring bit by bit now. The strength that he felt earlier was becoming stronger and stronger indistinctly. It's indeed effective. When Lin Dong sensed the recovered strength in his body, his mood uplifted abruptly, and a glint of happiness flashed across his eyes. Under the immersion of the weird energy, he could feel that his whole body was gradually strengthening. At this rate, he might be qualified to take on the second Nirvana tribulation in a relatively short time. Even though this green dragon test was painful, it was actually an ideal training ground. Keep going. As Lin Dong felt the recovered strength in his body, he then took a deep breath. Currently, there was not too much time left, and he could not possibly waste any more time in this place. Soon after he made a slight adjustment, he took a step forward and continued walking. On the seemingly boundless electric sea, a faint golden glow engulfed figure could be seen walking across the sea slowly. However, his walking posture was as firm as a mountain. The electric sea was extremely vast. A person standing in the midst of this sea would seem as insignificant as an ant. However, Lin Dong did not cower under such the greatness of the sea. Instead, he continued to walk forward without stopping at all. Clearly, it was impossible to pass through the electric sea in one day's time. With regards to time, Lin Dong was too lazy to keep track of it. All he knew was to keep on walking, step by step. No matter how big the electric sea was, there must be an end to it. Time silently slipped by in the electric sea. 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. Just 3 days ago, Lin Dong almost had enough of the torturing pain. Under that kind of intense pain, even his determined nature nearly gave way. Fortunately, human body possessed the adaptability to such intense pain, and there was the strengthening property of being under the intense pain as well. Even though each training session would leave Lin Dong in severe pain, he would ultimately persevere through his sufferings. Even little Martin was rather surprised at this his nature. After going through the last 3 days of utmost pain, contrary to belief, the intense pain was not alleviated. Instead, it was actually because Lin Dong's body started to get increasingly used to the torturing pain. As the time continued to pass, especially when it reached the 10th day, Lin Dong's body seemed to develop the antibodies to resist the abusive force of the electric sea. That kind of intense pain started to alleviate significantly. However, even though Lin Dong started to develop the antibodies, he still could not see the end of the electric sea. Lin Dong was slightly puzzled at this situation. However, he never panicked at all. Since it was supposed to be a test, there was bound to be an endpoint. It may be assumed that the exceptionally powerful practitioner, who created this dimension, would not be that senseless to fool around with the later generations on purpose. With this thought in his mind, Lin Dong continued to walk on this vast electric sea for another 5 days. Boom! Silver lightnings descended from the black clouds continuously. Finally, they struck the electric sea and created a sky-high lightning tidal wave. As that lightning tidal wave swept across the sea, a faint golden glowing figure could be seen walking slowly on the sea. When the tidal wave clashed against him ruthlessly, he did not even budge. Tchh. The electric liquids that stuck onto his body were sparking with electric arcs. However, they could no longer cause the slightest amount of pain on his body that had gone through half a month of training in this electric sea. Lin Dong used his palm to swipe off the electric liquids on his body. In half a month's time, his body had strengthened significantly. After going through that kind of torturing pain that ordinary people could not have imagined, he finally received a deserving reward. Lin Dong gazed into the distance and looked at the resplendent silverish electric sea and furrowed his eyebrows. According to his perception, the amount of strengthening that the electric sea could give his body had weakened significantly. At this point of time, this test seemed to be useless. It should be ending soon, Lin Dong muttered as he stared at the electric sea. Buzz. Just as Lin Dong finished his sentence, the surrounding atmosphere suddenly froze. In the middle of the electric sea, numerous violent whirlpools emerged. Lin Dong lowered his head and looked at the rolling electric sea beneath his feet. Soon after, his eye pupils dilated and he could feel that something was coming out from beneath the depths of the electric sea. The electric sea churned while silver-colored lightning slurry crackled, forming countless lightning arcs. The entire place looked extremely frightening. Lin Dong looked as though he was facing a great enemy when he saw such an unexpected change. Although he had already possessed some ability to endure this electric sea after half a month of shuttling through it, he also understood that if this endless electric sea was to really become wild and crazy, all it would take was one wave and even his ashes would not remain. Bright golden light swiftly spread out from within his body. His shiny golden body vaguely contained a faint silver glow flickering within it. It was as if there was some lightning glow leaping under it, appearing as though it was increasingly stronger and tougher. This half a month of tempering had clearly allowed Lin Dong's strength to reach a different level. While Lin Dong was completely focused on the churning electric sea, little Martin had once again flashed and appeared. Its eyes were a little shocked when it looked at this electric sea. Rumble. 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 The electric sea churned increasingly intensely while it was being watched by a person and a martin. At the end, the luster of the silver-colored electric sea appeared to have become an even deeper one. Lin Dong stared at this gradually deepening color. His eyes suddenly shrunk in the next instant. He discovered that an extremely large shadow seemed to be surging up from deep within the electric sea. That figure was extremely blurry, but was very huge. At a glance, Lin Dong could tell that everything within a 10,000 feet radius was covered by this shadow. Lin Dong involuntarily felt his head become numb the moment he thought of the figure's size. Immediately, he quickly retreated. An enormous wave surged on the electric sea as Lin Dong's body swiftly withdrew. Finally, it emitted a boom and a gigantic wave swept apart. Finally, it carried a sound that could shake the entire world as it violently surfaced from the sea. At that moment, even the space itself trembled because of it. A wave swept past Lin Dong's body, and the lightning slurry lingered over his body, repeatedly emitting many lightning arcs. Even though Lin Dong had been gradually strengthened, he was still forcefully sent flying for 1,000 feet due to this wild and violent force. Only then did he slowly land on the electric sea. Lin Dong's feet once again landed on the electric sea, and he immediately raised his head to look in front of him. Soon after, his expression underwent a drastic change. The thing that had appeared on the surface of the sea was an enormous being, which he could not see its edge. This large being's body was deep green in color, and was covered with bright scales. Its body was curled up and was as hard as steel. A kind of frightening pressure spread like the might of the heavens. At that instant, Lin Dong sensed the mental energy lingering around his body being forced back to his Niwen palace by this pressure. Is this a dragon? Lin Dong's mouth was dry as he watched this enormous being. Even his voice contained a slight fear in it. He had seen many powerful demonic beasts, including some demonic beasts with dragon bloodlines in them. However, there was clearly a big difference between those demonic beasts and the enormous being in front of him. That gap was just like the difference the king and that of the ordinary folks. In the demonic beast world, the mysterious and powerful dragon tribe was clearly at another level. Green dragon. Little Martin on Lin Dong's shoulder was also shocked by this enormous being that had suddenly appeared. A special glint immediately flashed past his eyes. He licked his mouth and laughed strangely. It is unexpected that I am actually able to see the green dragon that possessed the orthodox dragon blood in this place. It is really nostalgic. The corner of Lin Dong's mouth involuntarily twitched upon hearing these words. This fellow, could it be that it had truly eaten a dragon in the past? The celestial demon Martin was actually this aggressive, and they even dared to fight head-on against the dragon tribe that stood at the peak of the demonic beast world. Little Martin waved its claw and a circular black-colored glow wrapped around Lin Dong, isolating the powerful pressure at the same time. The dragon tribe might be powerful, but they are not invincible in the demonic beast world. Other than my celestial demon Martin tribe, there are some other powerful tribes that purposefully find trouble with them. One example is monstrous giant bird tribe. Those fellows love to eat the dragon tribe. Of course, the dragon tribe is no weak prawns. If the monstrous giant bird tribe wanted to eat them, the monstrous giant bird tribe would have to pay a hefty price. It is not rare for the monstrous giant bird tribe to end up being eaten instead. The two tribes could be considered as sworn enemies that seeks to kill each other. Little Martin laughed. Lin Dong wiped off some cold sweat. It seemed that this demonic beast world was quite complicated. Those demonic beasts are extremely gifted. They possessed extraordinary talent from the moment they were born and possessed far too many advantages when compared with humans. Some humans would likely not be able to compare with a demonic beast, which was just born, even if they trained until their death. Ha ha, it is unexpected that I am actually able to see someone from the celestial demon Martin tribe here. A soft laughter suddenly appeared above this electric sea, while Lin Dong was wiping off his cold sweat. Lin Dong abruptly raised his head upon hearing the laughter. His eyes followed the voice and looked over. After which, they focused on the giant head of the green dragon. There was a green-clothed figure at that spot, who was seated quietly. The green figure's appearance was quite handsome. His face also contained a warm smile that made him appear quite refined. If his hand possessed an additional folding fan in it, he would undoubtedly appear like a scholar. That fellow is the same as this green dragon. It is only a remnant figure. There is no need to be shocked. Little Martin lifted his head, stared at the figure and spoke to Lin Dong, who appeared as though he had met a great enemy. If I guess correctly, this entire realm should have been created by him. He should be the chief of this green dragon hall. Ha ha, my name is Qingji, most people call me Green Dragon King. The green-clothed figure laughingly said. Green Dragon King, Qingji, Lin Dong's eyes so elated. It seems that this person was indeed the ruler of this Green Dragon Hall, and also one of the people in charge of the Qiangang Alliance. There is finally someone here after so many years. Before you, there were also others who had charged in. However, all of their bones ended up being buried in this electric sea. Green Dragon King, Qingji, lowered his head, looked at Lin Dong and spoke smilingly. Lin Dong from the younger generation, greets Green Dragon King. Lin Dong cupped his hands together and bowed. No matter what the situation was, It would not be wrong to be a little more polite when faced with this kind of old demon, who existed during the ancient times. This was the case even if it was only a remnant shadow. There is no need to waste time. Didn't you come to this place because of the inheritance of the Green Dragon Hall? Since this fellow's remnant shadow had appeared, this means that you have already passed the Green Dragon test. He should quickly hand over the inheritance to you now. Little Martin by the side curled its mouth impatiently before it finally uttered those words, while Lin Dong was politely speaking with him. Lin Dong rolled his eyes. Clearly, he was speechless because of Little Martin's straightforward manner. Ha ha, he is correct. Anyone who passed the Green Dragon test does indeed possess the qualification to obtain my Green Dragon Hall's inheritance. Qing Ji merely smiled in the face of Little Martin's straightforward manner. After which, his gaze paused on Lin Dong. At that instant, Lin Dong seemed to sense that his body had been exposed without restraint under those scanning eyes. Kai. Lin Dong was clearly unable to stop this scanning that was on a completely different level. However, just when he was feeling helpless, the mysterious stone talisman, the devouring ancestral symbol, and the ancient universe formation in his body actually trembled at this moment. A kind of ripple spread out in a lightning-like manner. Boom! The air in front of Lin Dong suddenly exploded. The body Qing Ji, who was sitting on the green dragon, also trembled a little. His calm water-like eyes finally revealed a surprised expression. This little fellow might appear ordinary, but he is not someone whom you can randomly look into at your current state. It may be possible if it is your actual body personally doing it. Little Martin laughed strangely. Ha ha, seems like I have misjudged him. It is unexpected that such treasures are actually hidden within his body. The surprise in Qing Ji's eyes lasted for a moment before it completely disappeared as he laughed softly. All right, let's cut the crap. Hand over the inheritance. Little Martin waved his claws and pressed. Qing Ji smiled in a refined manner. He immediately nodded and said, since you are able to come to this place, you can indeed obtain the Green Dragon Hall's inheritance. However, you have two choices. Oh? Lin Dong was slightly startled as he lifted his eyes. If an ordinary person had arrived here, he will not possess the second choice. However, you seem to be a little different. Qing Ji smiled in a manner that suggested there was a deeper meaning. He immediately waved his sleeves and two green light rushed out from his sleeves before suspending in the sky. These are the two strongest martial arts in the Green Dragon Hall. They could reach the level of a high-grade soul martial arts. If you successfully practice it, it will likely not be a problem to challenge others across levels. Two high-grade soul martial arts. Lin Dong was startled. He did not expect this Qing Ji to be so generous and take out two high-grade soul martial arts. If this was in the outside world, it was likely that even those super sect would not be able to control themselves and end up fighting over them. What is the other choice? Lin Dong blinked his eyes. He did not directly receive the two martial arts. Instead, he asked once again. That is the inheritance of the Green Dragon Hall. Qing Ji smilingly stared at Lin Dong and replied, the other option is the inheritance from me, Qing Ji. This caused not only Lin Dong to be stunned. Even Little Martin by the side was a little surprised. Was this Qing Ji not a member of the Green Dragon Hall? I am unable to clearly explain the issues that happened during the ancient times to the both of you. Which are you going to choose now? Qing Ji waved his hand and did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he simply stared at Lin Dong. Lin Dong knitted his brows slightly. He mused for a moment before slowly replying, the latter. The latter was naturally referring to the inheritance from him, Qing Ji. Although Lin Dong was unaware of the exact identity of this Qing Ji, this person appeared to be extremely powerful. Ha ha, smart little fellow, Qing Ji grinned. He stretched his lazy waist and said, all right. However, if you fail to meet my expectations, when we meet in the future, I shall take back everything. Lin Dong was just about to nod his head, when he suddenly recovered. He cried out in surprise, when we meet in the future. You haven't died. Meet? Was this fellow in front of him not someone from the ancient times? At this moment, he had likely been dead for so long until nothing of him remained. How could they possibly meet? A strange smile surfaced on Qing Ji's face, as he watched the stunned gazes of Lin Dong and little Martin. He softly said, who told you that I am dead? This video will end here.